All right, y'all. Of course, we've been showing you what's been happening with Bishop Jake's Pastors Conference, where they put together pastors from the left and the right, talking about the issue of politics. Oh, folks, it got a little fever in the funk house. Check this out.
Who worked in the White House, worked for President Obama and knew him for years before that. The most effective religious voices were not those who endorsed him all full out and said that I'm going to be with you no matter what. They were the ones who supported him when they felt that he was supporting the community, but challenged him when he wasn't.
Yep.
And that is the prophetic voice of the church. That's what Dr. King would do. When he walked into the Oval Office, he didn't just say, I'm with you, I'm going to lay hands on you, and we're going to leave it at that, and I'm going to be with you no matter what. He said, what are you doing to advance voting rights? What are you doing to advance civil rights? We can't have these folks seek an endorsement and then we wrap our arms around them without then asking, what are you doing for my people? Those are the people that President Obama respected, not the ones who just gave an endorsement, but the ones who consistently held his feet to the fire. People like Bishop Jakes, like Father Mike and others who would have these conversations and would support him when it was right, but when they saw something that they didn't like, they would tell him about that as well.
I believe we need this unity. And we also need some sense of priority. We start, let's just use a very practical thing that you and I have talked a lot about, criminal justice reform. You've got something like that people on both sides of the aisle say that they're open to making a change. Now, they are not going to make a change unless a group of people with a constituency put pressure on them in one direction. That can be a prophetic act. Us organizing around one thing, not caring about all the other things we don't agree on, all the little doctrinal things in the way we do church that we may not like somebody else does church. So we can walk in the territory that Bishop Jakes talked about if we could at least say something like this. Criminal justice reform, education, the reading level, mathematic level of kids, and jobs have got to be a priority in this season. We have got enough agreement around there if we could somehow come together.
The Affordable Care Act, it affects all of us.
Yes.
Pre-existing conditions, that's on the table right now to be defunded possibly and changed. I mean, that affects the vast majority. That was really, they didn't say this, but a large portion of it was focused on the Black community to help with wellness. And those of us who have pre-existing conditions, now what's on the table, you're gonna have to pay higher rates now versus being able to not be discriminated against because you have a pre-existing condition. And people are not talking about that in this community. It's faith without works is dead, but I mean, it's one thing to read the Bible, but you also got to read the newspaper.
Well, but I agree.
We need folks to look at this Department of Justice right now because we are in the middle of some troubling shifts where all those police departments, local departments that were being monitored before, they're about to remove those consent decrees under this new Attorney General. And all of the progress that's very slow and careful and not nearly enough progress we're starting to make on investing in youth violence and ex-offender reentry and so forth, that's all coming under assault right now. So everyone who, even if you supported this current president, don't go away from that now. We need you to use that platform to go in and say that, you know, criminal justice matters and the Department of Justice matters. And Bishop Jackson's doing this, but we need others around the country to leverage their platforms to advocate and look at that Department of Justice.
But I'm going to piggyback off of something you said. There's also a mother that is crying out to the Justice Department continually, who's still seeking justice for what happened to her son in New York, who cried out 11 times, I can't breathe. She is calling on the Justice Department. Gwen Carr, the mother of Eric Garner, has tried to get justice for her son. There's still no accountability for the death of Eric Garner. Gwen Carr, the mother, is still looking for justice now from Jeff Sessions. It's said when some people get to the White House, going into the Oval Office in that inner circle is like kryptonite. You forget what you're going to say.
I'm just saying, I
Forget
can't speak like Joshua can to 8 years or Bishop Harry Jackson can for the multitude of years. I cannot do that. I can only speak to a current situation that I'm involved in. And I can say, Bishop Jakes, that has not been my experience, that I have been able to bring both from what people would say the Democrat and the Republican side together. Anyone who, I mean, in some tough settings, and I'm not talking about 5 minutes photo op. I've never had a photo op with him. I'm talking about 6 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours being heard. I know Bishop's been in a few of those meetings of hundreds of voices being heard that would be very different. There are things coming up this week that will be spent a 3-hour meeting with clergy, with voices on issues.
Well, they're comfortable with the direction this administration is taking as a Christian?
You know,
I mean, there might
guys,
be elements, but I mean,
first
overall.
off, Bishop Jakes is my spiritual father, and I always honor and respect him. I'm not comfortable with a lot of things, Bishop. I'm not comfortable with a lot of things, but I go back to saying that if that were a Democrat administration, if that were a Republican administration, I probably, as a person, am going to find fault with both, because if it's not in alignment with what I see as the infallible Word of God, I'm not going to be in agreement with it.
I really want to discuss what she just said. It is the narrative that is heralded over the pulpits all over America, that the welfare of the poor should be provided by the church. Okay? That is the narrative. Paula didn't go that far with it, but that is the narrative that we are told and taught consistently.
That's right.
If you just do the math,
Doesn't work out.
if you just do the math, if you take the gross national income of all the churches in America, if we didn't pay the mortgage, if we didn't pay the staff, if we didn't pay the light bill, and took all of our money and gave it all away to the poor and became homeless to feed them, we still don't have the money when we are taking 10% of a few people's income and they're taking 35% of everybody's income. I'd be that gone if I should have to feed everybody by myself.
Bishop, it doesn't add up, but neither does the $7 trillion debt we have right now. So the church doesn't have the money, and I agree. Wait, just 1 second, just 1 second. But neither does the debt. Everything's got to be overhauled.
The national debt is important. The debt owed to our communities is even more important, though. These are issues that have been stacking up for a long time. If every church in the country maxed out their spending on food and hunger issues, that would only cover about 6 to 7% of the hunger issues in our country. 93% is government. That's food stamps, SNAP program. That, by the way, that's another huge myth around that. People think that that's people abusing the system and so forth. Most of the people using SNAP are working families. And guess what? Most of them are actually not people of color. That's the federal school lunch program, where kids who sometimes that's the best meal they get is breakfast and lunch. And they're going after that right now.
And they're trying to cut it off right now.
7% is the church. 93% is that money that they're taking out of your check and need to give back to the debt that they owe our communities.
A peaceful protest turned deadly. 37-year-old black man was shot and killed by Baton Rouge police. His hands are in the air, and you still get shot by the cops.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
We're not gonna let hate define us.
Race is a big part of this. If truly all lives matter, then all lives need to matter equally.
What we require is action. What we require is accountability. We understand that black lives do matter, and we will keep focused on this issue.
NewsOne Now, every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.